Support comes from Mosby Building Arts, providing exterior solutions for homes with faded, cracked, or outdated siding. Details at callmosby.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Over the past week, an issue that's long existed in the St. Louis area has become the subject of news headlines and posts across social media. That issue is dog attacks. In recent years, the city of St. Louis has seen an uptick in complaints about dangerous animals. In 2025, there were 420 such complaints filed with the city. This year, and at just over a week into the month of June, and a couple weeks shy of the official start of summer, 188 reports of dangerous animals have already been filed. One of those reports came from Beth Ewing, wife of St. Louis musician and Steve's Hot Dogs owner, Steve Ewing. She was walking the family dog in Tower Grove Park last week when she and her dog Emmy were attacked by two dogs who broke free from their owners. Beth suffered mild injuries while trying to protect her dog, and a passerby who stopped to help was also mildly injured. Emmy died from her injuries. Beth says they were devastated by the loss. In conversation with STLPR reporter Lucretia Wimbley, Steve Ewing said the dogs who attacked shouldn't have been at the park to begin with.
I mean, if you can't control your dog, you shouldn't have your dog out amongst other people and children. Like, that park is full of kids and other dogs. So, I mean, that you shouldn't have if you can't control your dog, you shouldn't have your dog out.
Steve added that he would like to see the dog owners face accountability for what happened.
I want them to know that, that we have a dead dog. They killed a dog, so they should definitely come forth. That would be the right thing to do. Like, they killed the dog and then they injured two people.
Attacks like the one experienced by the Ewings have real and lasting effects. They also raise many questions. Some involve the underlying causes of dog attacks. Others pertain to laws regarding leashes and owner responsibility. And still others revolve around ways people can keep themselves and their pets safe as they move about in the world outside. So this hour, we're talking about all the above. And to start, we're focusing on hearing from local folks who have had direct encounters with aggressive canines. Joining us in studio to share about his experiences is Tower Grove East resident Sladen Fig. Sladen, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate
and
it.
Thanks so much for coming in to talk with us. So take us back to the day that you and your dog Sonic experienced attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 4th of July last year. I had just got home from work, and, normally after work I take him out right after work, as soon as I get home, around the block real quick, just to kind of get the energy out. And it was going to be 4th of July, so I knew the fireworks were coming, so I had to, get him out before that started up. So we had walked just right up the block. I live on South Grand, and we were walking right in front of Jay's International Market, right up there, and I see like these three dogs, all unleashed, just kind of trotting together as a pack. And I'm like kind of questioning, I'm looking around, nobody's with them. And I see a guy in front of me a little bit, and I'm like, are those your dogs? He's like, no, I don't know whose they are. They've just been running around here. I was like, oh, shoot. So I kind of started to turn around. And once I turned around, the dogs saw me, and they saw my dog. And then they started running towards me. So I was like, oh, man, I'm going to pick him up and try to get going. And so I picked my dog up and took a couple steps the other direction. And by that time, the dogs had caught up to us and tackled us both. And initially we're, going after him. And I jumped on top of him and kind of shielded him. And then they started mauling me. And I think they bit me all over the face and the neck and the arms. I think at one point, like, one of them had a hold of my nose, one of them had a hold of my neck, and one of them had a hold of my arm, like, all at the same time. And they're just pulling, and there's several people around, and they're all, like, trying to get him pulled off. And one person, I think, had a trash can lid, and he was hitting them with trash can lids, and they were, like, not letting go. Like, they were just clamped down on me. And then out of nowhere, a lady, I guess she was driving by, she had saw what was going on. stopped and pepper sprayed all of us. Said, "I'm about to pepper spray. Watch out!" And so she threw a blast of pepper spray down, and that distracted the dogs in enough time to kind of pull me and my dog away. And so they pulled us away into like a vehicle and told me, wait, we got to get first responders here. You can't just leave the scene. We got to get a first responder here. So a lot of people around the scene were calling 911. I didn't know where my phone was, so I couldn't call anybody. So I'm just sitting there in the car with my dog. He's like bleeding, I'm bleeding. And then first responders never ended up showing up. It was about 30 minutes past, and I'm like, I got to get to a hospital. Like, I'm bleeding. Like, my dog's cut up. And so we end up walking up the block back to my house, because I didn't get far from my house. The incident happened right up the block from my house. So we get back to the house. I drop him off at the house, and I tried to call an ambulance again. They still didn't show up, so I drove myself to the hospital. And then I get to the hospital. I'm sitting sat in the emergency room for a couple hours.
Bleeding.
Yeah, bleeding everywhere. But it's 4th of July, so like people are coming in with firework injuries and stuff.
My goodness, right.
Yeah, so they like had to get to them before they got to me. And so I'm sitting there for hours. Finally, they took me back, operated on my face. So they had to like give me stitches in my eyelids. So they had to put like these metal sheets down in my lids to cover my eyeballs, so like the needles didn't like stab my eyeballs. And they told me I was really lucky that the dogs didn't bite my eyeballs, because it was like fractions away from blinding me. So like, yeah, they had, I don't know how many, couple hour surgery in there, awake through the whole thing, like super painful.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't know why I wasn't put to sleep, but.
Well, I'm glad that you were sitting here in front of us to talk with us about that experience. I mean, it must have been absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So
Never had any experiences like that before, for sure.
The extent of your injuries and Sonic's too.
Yeah.
You mentioned what was happening with your eyelids, and when all was said and done, what were the extent of the injuries that you endured?
So several different stitching to like my eyelids and my nose and my forehead and stuff. And then I had to continuously go back for like rabies vaccinations every week. And then when I got back from the hospital, I had to take my dog to the vet because I didn't know what was going on with him. There was blood everywhere. So from what I had seen before I went to the hospital, he had just had a big chunk taken out of his leg, but it had healed enough to where it wasn't bleeding anymore. So went and got that cleaned up at the vet. He had to get put under anesthesia and get surgery on that. And so we got that all taken care of. And then, we were out probably a couple, like my medical bill was about $5,000 with insurance. And then his was like $1,500 to $2,000 with, anesthesias and stuff like that. We made it, we made it through. We got healed up. But then the next mission was, trying to track down and find out who the dogs were.
Right. So those dogs, as you described, they were together, three of them, in an area that is full of pedestrians, a very busy area. Were you able to find out who was responsible for those canines?
Yeah. So luckily, like right after the incident, I tried to call the police, and the police directed me to Animal Control, and then Animal Control directed me to Citizen Service Bureau, and then they redirected me back to Animal Control, and it was a big runaround with that. Finally, when I got through to Animal Control and filled them about the incident, they basically told me they couldn't really do much since I didn't know who the owners were and who the dogs were or anything like that. So they just said they'd keep an eye out, but to try to get more information on the owners. So I did some investigating and made a post on Reddit, and a lot of people in the community got together and reached out, and they're like, yeah, no, I know whose dogs those were. Those are my neighbor's dogs. Like, they live at this house. So I ended up getting the information and sent it off to Animal Control, and they told me that they'll put the dogs on quarantine and then they'll follow up later. And then I didn't hear back until about a little more over a week later. a victim of the same dogs that attacked me reached out and said, "Hey, those dogs just attacked me and my wife."
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And I was like, "What? Those dogs are supposed to be on a quarantine." So I reached out to animal control. I'm like, "Hey, I think the same dogs that got, the dogs that got me, that got somebody else, they were supposed to be on a quarantine." They're like, "We can't confirm or deny it was the same dogs, but we'll look into it." And then like right after that, then animal control started reaching out, asking me for information about my incident and pictures of my attack. And it was all like a whole 2 weeks later, like trying to figure out about my incident.
So 3 incidents after, or 2, after what had happened with you, you also described the number of people who came to your aid. Were those folks immediately in touch with you? I mean, I would imagine that after experiencing an attack like that, where not only are you injured, but your dog as well, like having the presence of mind to ask people to send you whatever footage they had. How did that work? Was it again through Reddit or?
Yeah, it was Reddit, and then there had been a couple. I don't have other social medias, so my fiance is a part of a Tower Grove page on Facebook, and said somebody had posted on there saying, "I just saw a man and his dog get mauled by 3 dogs. They're still on the loose." And there were several pages on other social medias, so we reached out to like all of those, and we're like, "Can you send us everything you know? What did you see?" Like. We actually got the security footage from Jay's International Market. They had the whole thing on video.
Were they pretty amenable to doing that?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
everybody, yeah. There was a local coffee shop that helped out. Everybody on that strip was really helpful. The residents and the business owners and stuff.
Was there anything about the city's response that surprised you, like it disappointed you, really?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just like the lack of attentiveness on the situation, like not getting back to me about my incident until the dogs had got out and got another victim. And I feel like, as far as like the leash laws and stuff go, there's not. I mean, I see unleashed dogs every day in Tower Grove Park. I don't go there anymore because of that. So maybe leash laws could be enforced more. I go to parks now that actually have signs up that have leash laws enforced, and I don't have problems with things like this anymore. Because that wasn't the first incident at Tower Grove Park with unleashed dogs. I mean, that's happened multiple times. That's the first time it's been violent like that. So yeah, I don't even really frequent that neighborhood anymore. I just kind of go to places that are more safe. And
Are there other ways that what happened has affected you? You mentioned the financial burden that you had to bear, that you are not going to the places you used to take your dog Sonic. What are some of the other effects that you've had to deal with? Like when you see other dogs out, what goes through your mind and through your body?
yeah. Oh, I mean, super frightening. Because like Steve said in that clip, there's kids walking around everywhere throughout the neighborhood, and families and other small dogs that people have with them, and just any a lot of things going on. So when I see it, it's like, man, I really wish something could be done about that. It's unfortunate because it's only a matter of time for something like that happens again if you keep having a lot of that behavior. But yeah, no, a lot of the changes that I've made, I mean, I'm not even gonna continue living in the city anymore after this because I don't feel comfortable walking outside of my house with my dog, and walking my dog's my favorite thing to do. So I'm gonna move out, maybe a spot in the county that's got a little bit more trails and kind of out of the way a little bit.
So it's really affected the decision making that you're doing.
Yeah.
About where to make your life.
For sure, yeah, because I don't have kids myself, but I want to do that one day, and I don't want to live in a place where I got to worry about my kids getting attacked by unleashed dogs while they're just playing in the yard and stuff like that. That's no way to live.
What has changed in the past year regarding your situation? Is there something that you think could be done to make what you went through somehow right?
I mean, I feel like Like I said, I feel like leash laws could be enforced more. I mean, I've noticed where there are parks where there's signs that say like fine if the dogs aren't on a leash. I find that to be successful. I know, like from what I've heard after this incident, a lot of people have reached out to me and told me that Missouri laws are pretty lax regarding backyard breeding, and a lot of these incidents happen from dogs that were from backyard breeders. And a lot of that backyard breeding, I know, isn't very ethical. A lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people do it for financial gain rather than just to spread the love of animals to other people. So when you got that happening, you have a lot of untrained dogs and irresponsible owners and things like that happen. So maybe that could be looked into.
Do you have any idea about what has happened with the owner of those 3 dogs who attacked you?
Yeah, he got away scot-free. Didn't have to face any charges. I tried to file a lawsuit, but he didn't have homeowners insurance, so there was no way to go to collect damages. Somebody suggested I try to collect damages from him personally, but my lawyer said that he has a history of filing for bankruptcy. And so if I were to go after him personally, he would just do that, and I would lose more money in court than what I would gain from the damages. And then also I kind of looked into his history, and he's got a couple animal control violations and stuff like that. So the fact that he's still able to, keep dogs and have them is kind of alarming. I guess he was allowed to, or he had to, I guess animal control, from what I understand, took one of the dogs from the incident, and he sold 2 of them or something along those lines. But I didn't hear anything about him being permitted to have more. So, I mean, from my understanding, he was a backyard breeder, and that's just, it's going to continue to happen if, that's the business he's in. So
you picked up your dog, Sonic, when you saw those other dogs. How is Sonic doing now?
He's fine. He doesn't seem too impacted by the incident. I mean, granted, I don't go to like public dog parks and stuff anymore, and so I don't get to see his interaction around stranger dogs anymore. I probably won't ever grant that opportunity again. But he's like, when we're on walks and stuff, and we see other dogs, or I go take him to my family's house and they play with the family dog, he's fine. I mean, I don't notice any repercussions from him. He's like, physically, he's completely healed. Has no, he, like I said, he had a chunk taken out of his leg, but the vets doctored that up real good and gave me some antibiotics. So yeah, he's cool. He's just same old Sonic.
Yeah. Is there something that you wish people better understood about this issue?
That it can happen so fast, and a lot of people, they don't realize like it can even happen from 2 very well-trained dogs. If if the wrong thing happens, and if it's in the wrong, that's why everybody, it's why it's best to just keep them on a leash. Like if you have your dog on a leash, it's most likely situations like this aren't going to happen, because they're still wild animals at the end of the day. And you can't always just rely on it's a good dog.
Yeah. Slade and Fig, thank you so much for talking with us about the experience that you had. And it's great to hear that Sonic is doing better. And I hope that there's some resolution that you find going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Slade and Fig is a Tower Grove East resident. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation and focus on the underlying causes behind dog attacks, city enforcement of leash laws and irresponsible dog ownership, and how to stay safe during a dog attack. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Support comes from Gemma, architects, planners, and designers seeking to bring joy to their clients and communities. Details at gemastl.com.
Welcome back. Let's return to our conversation about dog attacks, which have been in local headlines and across social media over the past week. Before the break, we heard from Sladen Fig, a resident of Tower Grove East, and he experienced a dog attack last year, and that affected both him and his dog, Sonic. Fortunately, Sonic is doing well, and Sladen also is doing well. Now, more recently, St. Louis resident Kat Blake was walking her dog Leo at City Gardens Sculpture Park downtown. This was last Wednesday, and that was when the pair were approached by one and eventually two dogs whose owner lost control of them.
We walked through the splash pad area and there were a lot of kids and families hanging out. And I noticed a woman with two large pit bulls kind of off of the main walking path behind a bench. And then as soon as they saw us, they got very excited and one immediately broke free from her holding onto the leash, ran over toward us, and immediately started going after my dog. And I, tried to swing my water bottle at it, kind of kicking, pushing him away, but wasn't really successful in keeping him away. He eventually knocked me down, which was a little scary because I was at his face level and was still going after my dog. And then the pit bull's owner came over bringing her second dog, and then he kind of started going after my dog as well and was eventually able to kind of extend my arms out in a T and hold their collars, and my dog was kind of in between my legs in front of me, so we got them a little bit more separated and she was able to get control of them eventually.
Kat came away from the incident with scratches and a big bruise on her leg. Luckily, her dog Leo didn't have any bites either.
He's very fluffy, so I think they maybe had a hard time getting through all of his fur.
Kat said she's grateful they came away relatively unscathed, but the incident was jarring.
It was very scary. I think in the moment I did have a lot of adrenaline and my mind was just so focused on, not letting my dog get injured that I was probably stupid, but wasn't really thinking about how seriously in danger I was being, on the ground at face level. But I guess I'm just glad that it wasn't more serious because I've been big brothers, big sisters, and my little and I were just in that park the previous week, and she was walking my dog at the time. So it was very, very nerve-wracking that it could have happened while she had him, and things could have been a lot worse than what they were.
Kat and the park security guard were able to get photos of the dogs who attacked, as well as of their owner, but the woman wouldn't give her name or contact information. Kat describes the process of trying to file a report with the city as, quote, frustrating. Kat went to file a police report on what happened, a process she described again as frustrating due to a lot of back and forth with the city over whether she should file in person or over the phone. After several phone calls and station visits, she was told they would send an animal control officer to her.
But this was later around 4:30, and at that time there were no officers who were available, so I just ended up leaving and filed the report online and attached some photos.
When Kat filed the report last Friday, the city told her she would hear back from them in 19 days. In the meantime, Kat bought mace, which she now carries on walks with her dog Leo.
I don't know if that will or will not help in the future if we were to get attacked, but I think generally probably trying to avoid other people with dogs when we're out, which I do typically keep my dog, away from others as best as I can, but it can be a little bit difficult.
That was Kat Blake, who reports being attacked by 2 dogs in downtown St. Louis on Wednesday. And joining us now in studio to discuss some of what we've just heard, as well as causes underlying dog attacks, city leash laws, owner responsibility, and pet safety and human safety outside, we welcome 2 guests. First, we have Dr. Carrie Morgan, who is medical director at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis. That's a nonprofit shelter for animals in the city of St. Louis. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And also joining us is Kristen Zellen. Kristen is Animal Regulation Center Supervisor with the City of St. Louis. She also works with CARE STL. Welcome to you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I'd like first to get a response from each of you to what we've heard, not only from Kat Blake, but also earlier from Sladen Fig. And I'd like to start first with you, Dr. Morgan.
Yeah, I think when I hear things like that, I get really emotional, and in my mind, I know they have all experienced a trauma, including the dog, and I heard them talk about limited resources, and that's something that we deal with too, and are very frustrated with. And I just want everyone to know my heart goes out to them, and I want to know how can I help from preventing this in the future.
Mm-hmm. So prevention is the thing that is chiefly for you.
Prevention is going to be what I'll be speaking to most.
Mm-hmm. And then how about for you, Kristen?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Dr. Morgan, right? There's nothing better than preventing these things from happening. With that said, they do happen. Dogs are dogs, and for one reason or another, incidents do occur. And so what do we do next, right, when that happens, to hold individuals accountable and to make sure that this isn't happening again? And so I think that there are, a lot of intricacies to things like this. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to that. And also, my heart really goes out to the victims of incidents like this, because it is really traumatizing, and it's really scary, and it does end up, framing the way that you live your life.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I would like to have us address right off the top are these underlying causes, because prevention, that has something to do with it. And then when you hear from people who are filing reports, obviously you are getting some description of the situations that that people were finding themselves in. What is one of the biggest factors behind most dog attacks that we've been hearing about, Dr. Morgan?
I think that we are not the best at reading communication and understanding how dogs are communicating with us, whether that's our own pet or seeing somebody else with another pet. And we put dogs in really tough situations all the time. We ask a lot of them, So I think that,
Yeah, so the underlying causes and what it is, people are encountering.
Yeah. So I think because of that, I think we need to start to arm ourselves with the knowledge to read body language. And we also need access for support to train our dogs. And a lot of us, we see all of these dog behaviors. We don't know what to do with them, or we don't have access to the funds to be able to have a really good partnership with our dogs.
Mm-hmm. Training is something that is not always accessible to people. One of the things that should be are leashes. And Kristen, leashes came up quite a bit in the conversation with Sladen Fig, and in some of the comments that we've seen people post in response to some of the incidents that have happened in the past week. Can you give us some understanding of what the leash law is in the city of St. Louis and what happens when that law is violated?
Absolutely. So all animals should be kept on a leash when off of their property. essentially within the city limits. And on top of that, in city parks, all dogs are required to be on a 6-foot leash, so a little bit shorter. So things like retractable leashes that are very, very popular actually technically don't really give you great control over your dog. So those aren't really recommended in situations where you're going to be around a lot of people. I will say that most dog bite incidents that we get are from owned animals. They are, not as commonly going to be stray dogs. Now, definitely they're more commonly going to be dogs off leash, but they do have an owner. With leash laws, violation of a leash law is an offense that we can charge for and we can fine for, most certainly. But sometimes getting the amount of evidence that we need in order to file those charges can be a bit of a barrier. I will say animal control, we have our patrol cars. We patrol parks regularly in neighborhoods where these things are reported. But it's just like, when people see the police drive by, you slow down a little bit, right? So when our officers are in those areas, individuals are on their best behavior and they put their dogs on leashes. So we ask a lot of the community. If you see a dog off leash, take a picture of it if you can do so safely and provide that to us because we need the evidence in order to file those charges. Now, in situations like these where there's an attack, I don't want you to pull out your phone and snap a picture. I want you to prioritize your health and your safety and the safety of your animals. But certainly, these are things that we run into some difficulties with just proving, that the dog was off leash. Very difficult to go by just word of mouth sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Morgan, you work with the dogs that come into Care STL. And I'd like to hear also from you about what we know about the differences between different kinds of dogs. I think family dogs is one category and resident dogs, that's another. How are dogs that are kept for guarding, breeding, or protection, how do they react differently than other dogs might? And these are dogs that are owned and very well could be on leashes when they're out in public spaces.
Yeah, I think dogs that come in with really high scores of fear, anxiety, and stress indicates to me that they're under-socialized, whether they're, mostly kept outside or not had a lot of positive associations with new people, kids, other dogs. I find that they lack the coping mechanisms to be in the shelter. And most animals are actually quite fearful when they come to the shelter. It's a really difficult place for dogs to live, but especially dogs who are who lack those positive experiences. They are, we call it FAS, fear, anxiety, and stress is through the roof. So they're going to be spinning, constantly barking, dilated pupils, really unable to settle down and on high alert at all times.
Mm-hmm. And do dogs like that display those behaviors even when they are out in public spaces, or are you talking about specific to the ones that you're seeing coming into contact with at the shelter?
That I can attest to just in the shelter because they're in a constant fight or flight mode. So dogs that are out in the open that are under-socialized, they're not experienced that constant state of fight or flight mode, where dogs in the shelter who are under-socialized, they are quite literally living minute to minute in fight or flight.
Mm-hmm. We heard from Jeremiah, who says, I've worked in parks for 20 years now, and people just won't keep their dogs on leash. I've also noticed over 20 years that it has progressively gotten worse. I'm not an advocate for police solutions, but we are at the point where having your dog off leash in public space is criminal. And for the people that say, no, not my dog, yes, you are part of the problem. And Nancy also chimed in, people have no business being out with dogs they can't control. The dog owners should fess up and take some responsibility for their actions. What do you make of the idea that certain owners should not own certain dogs? So, Kat Blake, whom we heard from earlier, told our producer Emily Woodbury that the woman with the 2 pit bulls didn't seem to have the strength or control to handle them. Kristen?
So I think that, I'm an advocate of everyone, has the right to the type of dog that they feel like fits their life. But I do think that it's a very important consideration for individuals to make when adopting a dog. It is not something that should be taken lightly. If you're someone that loves big dogs because you've always loved big dogs, I think educating yourself and having that education available to you about what that means, what owning a big dog means, is super important. And then getting to know your dog, like Dr. Morgan said about socialization, it goes with the dog being socialized, but also you and your dog being socialized correctly. If you learn, that maybe you can't trust your dog as well, maybe you don't go to parks during busy hours. Maybe we walk on side streets, things like that. But I don't think that telling people that they're not allowed to have specific types of breeds is something that's reasonable or feasible. People are going to do what they want to do. So I think providing resources, appropriate leashes, tethers, education is really where we need to focus.
Is there something you'd like to add to that, Dr. Morgan?
Yeah, I think we really also need to change. We need to really encourage people that I use a leash like a safety belt, right? I think a lot of people don't want to put a dog on the leash because they literally treat their dogs like family members, right? So like it feels wrong to have a family member like on a leash, but bigger dogs especially, they need the protection, they need the safety belt, right? Because big dogs can't get away with things like little dogs can. So a Chihuahua can bite someone and they get away with it, right? They're not causing damage. It's not going to be a life-threatening injury. But the bigger dogs need their pet parents to advocate for them and say, help protect me when I do get in an uncomfortable situation I am over my head. I need to have a leash on.
Mm-hmm. So it's safety not only for others, but also for your own animal. Yeah. We're going to take a very quick break here, but we'll be back shortly to continue this conversation about dog attacks and how we can prevent them, how people can keep themselves and their pets safe. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.
Welcome back. Let's return to our conversation today about dog attacks, which have been in news headlines locally and across social media feeds. Before the break, we were talking a bit about different breeds, how people can deal with them, the impossibility of controlling which breeds people will have, and the importance also of keeping not only other people safe, but our own pets and the people around us. Terry wrote in and said, "My dog Captain was attacked and killed by a pit bull 3 months ago. How many more of these incidents do we have to see before the aldermen and police start doing something about the loose dogs?" And Terry also adds that he started carrying around a fire extinguisher on dog walks because he heard that CO2 fire extinguishers work well against attacking dogs. We heard also from Dawn, who says, "I never walk without my gun. No one should have to carry a weapon, but unfortunately we live in a world that does not leave us a choice." And other people shared with us that they carry a cattle prod, billy club, and mace while on walks with their dogs. So this brings up the question then about protection and how to step in, as it were, if there is a fight or an attack underway. What do people do? What should they do if their dogs are in a fight with another dog, Dr. Morgan?
Yeah, so I guess we'll skip right over. Obviously, we know avoiding that situation is going to be best, but what do you do if you're in that situation? And preparing is good, but just keep it, I always keep in mind when you're in that situation, you both are, again, in that fight or flight mode. So it's really hard to take a step back and kind of, what do I do in this situation? So, but what I would suggest is, you want to try to avoid being around that other dog's mouth and your dog's mouth at all costs, right? We need to protect ourselves. Put your own oxygen mask on first, right? We need to make sure we're safe so that we can help our dog safely get out of this situation. And the owner getting bit is not going to help. Carrying around an air horn is a really great way. It's extremely loud. It's a really good distraction. And that's going to be like the simplest way to get that dog off. And once the dog lets go, you leave, to pick your dog up and leave. I would also suggest having something called a bite stick, and it's really like it's almost like a piece of wood that you would wedge into the dog's mouth and physically open it up. And that's like, you use that worst case scenario, right? Because if a dog is latched onto you and you pull away, it's just going to tear.
Okay.
So you need to get that dog bite open. And also, if two dogs are latched onto each other and there are two people, you're going to want to just try to, again, stay away from the dog's mouth, but grab the end of the dogs and try to pull them off that way.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, what safety measures have you employed when working with aggressive canines?
So, as Dr. Morgan stated, and I'll echo, always make sure that you are keeping yourself safe. You're not going to be able to do much to help if you sustain an injury, right? Another important piece of this is when two dogs are fighting, and that one dog, let's say, is latched on to the other, it's also very important not to try to pull those dogs apart and separate them, because that tearing will occur. Bite sticks are something that we do use in animal control. We also, I cannot echo enough, air horns and pet correctors. You can order these from Amazon or from pet stores. They are very loud. Some of them are just compressed air that hisses, but they're meant to startle the dog enough to at least break it apart for a short moment, and give you some time to redirect.
So we heard from a lot of people who are talking about mace. Is not the way to go? And is sound really the thing that is more effective?
Mace is not something that our animal control officers use, because it can cause damage not only to the dog that you're intending it to cause damage to, right? Now, it is not necessarily highly violent like some of those other things that you listed. Sound is generally what we use as far as creating that quick distraction. But there is not a solution. Everything is not going to work for every dog based on their history, what they know, what scares them. Some dogs are used to loud sounds, so it is important to, create that barrier and to make sure that you're keeping yourself as safe as you can.
Mm-hmm. Understanding that people do need to take their dogs out to take care of nature's call, to get exercise, to enjoy time, out of doors. Are there other tips that you can offer, Dr. Morgan, about safety while walking your dogs, to avoid a fight before it happens? And are there certain signs to be watchful for that may not necessarily come across at first as aggressive behavior?
Yeah, I think, again, I know it's just easy to avoid. Whenever you see a dog, just cross the street safely. Just try to give every dog a very wide berth, because you just don't know. One, that dog's history and what they're comfortable with. And two, you don't know if that owner knows how to read dog body language. I always recommend, when I'm talking about safety belts and safety nets, in addition to a leash, you want to bring treats with you. That's a really good way to keep your dog focused on you at all times, right? If your dog's looking at another dog, you say, hey, come with me. Make sure you have treats that you can get your dog on your side and to stick by you. And again, like if you have a little dog and you see another dog, pick them up and walk the other way. And as far as looking at signs that other dogs are showing, if you see a dog off leash, avoid them at all costs. If you see dogs, so when dogs are communicate, we call, you have this stress escalation, right? So they're going to show ideally these lower level signs of stress and conflict before they go to the higher signs such as biting and attacking. So if you see a dog that is very forward, ears forward, locked in on you, locked in on your dog, if they freeze, right? They're showing signs like I am experiencing a conflict. If you see that forward movement, those tense muscles, that's a sign where it's like this dog is uncomfortable for whatever reason and they're about to create conflict.
Mm-hmm. Kristen, these attacks, unfortunately, we are going to see them. When someone has experienced a dog fight while on a walk, what do you advise that they do first once dogs have been separated?
Yes. So first things first is if you need medical help or your pet needs medical help, that's where we need to go, right? We can get the rest of the information that we need later. If it is a situation where it is a dog that is still running around, I would recommend, calling non-emergency police or even the police as quickly as possible. If it is an animal that is owned, generally I would say you probably have a little more time just because there's someone with the animal, right? But either way, once everyone is safe, I would recommend, either calling non-emergency police if it is, on the weekend, or 311. St. Louis has a 311 now. You can always call animal control at our office, or you can call the Citizen Service Bureau, and get as much evidence as you can at the time safely, right? If there are other people, if there are witnesses, exchange phone numbers. You don't need to take pictures of the injuries right away, but if you can take pictures of the dog or the owner if they're running away, especially, that's going to be super helpful to, some recourse later. And then once everything is kind of settled down, we can start working on gathering that information, because what animal control needs to enforce these types of things are pictures of wounds, medical records, and things like witness statements. So those can all be collected later, but they are important as far as the enforcement aspect. If we want to get some things done, we are going to need to get those eventually.
Mm-hmm. And very quickly, what are the limitations of animal control officers like yourself in dealing with problematic pet owners?
So it is something that we deal with on a daily basis. And animal control we can only do so much enforcement-wise. We are not the police, right? We do get police involved whenever there is an owner that is being exceedingly difficult, that has dangerous dogs, that will not cooperate. We work closely with police in that. So that is something that we will seek if we have, a known dangerous animal or a cruelty situation where we need a little bit more power than we have. We try our best to get in contact with people as many times as we can, but sometimes it's beyond what we can do on our own.
Mm-hmm. And as takeaways, Dr. Morgan, what do you wish people better understood about dog fights and what's not being talked about enough?
I think takeaway is we should all be able to read and understand dog body language. I would love for us to shift towards positive reinforcement. And I think what we're not understanding is that people don't have access to these things, right? I think like everyone deserves the love of a dog. People are going to own dogs. They think of them as family members. And how can we help provide those resources to people so that we're not in so many situations where we have these dog attacks happening in the first place?
Mm-hmm. Kristen, very quickly.
I think that people shouldn't be afraid to ask for help if they need some help. If they have a difficult dog, if they're having a difficult situation, they should they should ask. They can call animal control and ask for help. We can do our best, and just the importance of keeping yourself safe, because not everyone is going to be looking out for your safety the way that you are.
Kristen Zellen is Animal Regulations Center Supervisor with the City of St. Louis, and Dr. Carrie Morgan is Medical Director at the Center for Animal Rescue and Enrichment of St. Louis. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.